Welcome to Vegas Live. I'm Ninon, your host, and yes, wow, do we have a group in today. I don't know what this is, but I believe it's probably something to do with getting rid of 2015 and bringing in 2016.
That's right.
And with me I have Rusty Meyers. Rusty Meyers is actually very, very famous. Though the funny thing about Vegas is when you're famous, nobody really knows you're famous here, do they? Because everybody is famous here.
Well, infamous, and we're in one of the most infamous places in town.
Isn't this great?
The Peppermill, yeah.
Yeah, we're at the Peppermill, and of course...
When I came in, she said you may be sitting where Elvis sat.
Yeah, this is where Elvis used to sit.
Plus
Plus all the Rat Packers and
Yeah.
everybody, I think. But this was definitely Elvis's booth here, so this is quite honourable to be sitting. How do you feel? How does it feel?
It feels like I'm with them now. It's the ghosts. It's the whole flavor.
No, you've reached fame.
Oh, okay. I've reached it.
But I think Rusty reached
out and
fame
grab it.
long before that.
Well,
Carlos S, party and your tables ready?
excuse me, I gotta go. Oh, that's me right there. No, I actually started doing this. I'll skip ahead a little bit, so not to go through all
too much.
Well, I don't want to go through my.
One question I need to ask: when did you start acting?
In '71.
71.
I was before I went to high school. I went to a school that didn't have theater, a choir, so I was involved with that.
So you sing?
I do sing. I did a lot of musicals, and all through high school and college, I had done 5-6 shows a year.
Really?
I kind of grew up in Michigan, and then between my sophomore and junior year of high school, my parents moved us to Arizona. And I continued doing theater. Continued doing theater, musicals and plays.
You know what they say? They say the greatest thing that any actor can have behind him is when he does theater. Because it's
a great foundation.
And I don't know why. I've often wondered and thought, why do they have to have theatre behind them to make them so great? And I really don't know what it is, but maybe it's learning the lines and being secure on stage, because you can't forget lines on a stage, can you?
Well, you shouldn't.
No, you can. I mean, yes, you do forget them, but you shouldn't.
Well, I ended up, being fortunate enough to get, leads in all the shows, and a recruiter from
How did you
one
get
of
the leads? What
you know what? It was one of those things where you stick out like a sore thumb, or you're the loudest person, and that's always
He was probably the
why
loudest.
that happened.
Yeah, you were probably the loudest. You wouldn't you wouldn't let them walk over you. That's for sure.
Not usually.
No.
So a recruiter came and offered me a full ride scholarship to a theater college in Arizona, and went there, and between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I went to audition for a summer stock up in Cripple Creek, Colorado, and I was 18 at the time. And we did 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, 150 shows. My first professional show, and I was the youngest actor ever to perform there.
And talk about getting plenty of practice, because this really, I mean, you were dedicated.
Well,
whether you were not or whether you weren't, you became dedicated.
Absolutely, and we got paid $85 a week.
$85 a week. That's
plus room. In 70.
Plus room.
This was in 76. Yeah, and I would have done it for nothing.
Yes.
At the time, because the learning experience. So I came back to college, graduated college in '77, and immediately moved to LA.
In the arts?
Yeah.
You did.
And moved to LA, thinking, I'm gonna see what that's like, and just dove right in, trying to. But being a theater guy, that transition from theater, TV, and film, and commercial, it didn't work very well for me.
Oh, it didn't?
It actually, not at first. It was something, it was one of those, you'd go into auditions, tone it down, relax, we're this close on
and
this.
you were ready to throw that voice
I'm putting
out to
it
the
out
other end of the
yeah.
theatre. That's what you have to do.
Everything's big.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, getting in a few things, couple of, little parts here and there.
It's hard, even in those days, it was hard in LA. Because everybody there seems to want to take up acting, whether they're good or bad or right or wrong.
Absolutely.
And
it's all about
competition.
agents. Yeah, it's about having an agent and them believing in you.
Isn't it an agent who you know?
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing about acting, I guess the unfortunate thing about anything, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Absolutely.
And that's so sad, because it's this sort of, you've got all this great experience and a great thing going for you, and it's, if you know this person, you can get in, and I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it took me a while. I would still do theater and musicals in and around other places.
They don't have any theaters in
I would go out of town. I would go to Oklahoma and Florida and Omaha, Nebraska.
In Los Angeles, they don't have that many theaters.
Not that many. So I gave LA like 6 years, and a friend of mine lived in Texas, and they said Texas is getting big. So I went to Texas and lived there for a while, and oddly enough, I'm there for a year, and I get a film called Silverado, a Western with Kevin Costner and Scott Glenn, Brian Dennehy.
Just a few of the little actors, you know.
And I played Rosanna Arquette's husband in it. And it was a pretty big film.
Was it a big part?
Yeah, I worked 13 weeks on the film. And
so
I thought
did you have titles up there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was...
But I think at this particular time of your life, you weren't deserved of that.
No.
You worked hard.
Well, I mean, I was so freaked out when I get to this set. I'm going, oh my, this is overwhelming. When you're on a huge and on location set. I was 26. 26. No, I was 26. And so, but I was still doing theater. And so I got this film. My brother happened to have moved up to New York, and he did a lot of Broadway. He said, you should come up to New York, because I was in Texas for like 4 years. And there wasn't enough for me.
I was going to say it wouldn't be enough in Texas.
And so I moved up to New York, and he was doing shows, and he introduced me to... Yeah, and he introduced me to his manager, and they said, you have a really interesting...
Good job you had a good brother, you see? He knew somebody, his brother.
Exactly. Well, I got him his equity card, so he owed me. And so I ended up hooking up with his manager, and she says, you really have an interesting commercial look, and there are not a lot of your type in New York. You know, the blonde, blue eyes.
And I said,
well, I mean, the typical New Yorker. Hey, yo, Joe, how you doing? You know, I mean, I wasn't that. So it was one of those things where I went around and met with agents. I ended up being a spokesperson for Wendy's Hamburgers for like 10, 12 years.
Wow.
Opposite Dave Thomas on screen.
I knew the owners of the Wendy's people in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So they were.
And so I did very well commercially and lived there for a few years throughout the whole year. But if you haven't been to New York and the weather, it's like brutal.
I knew you were in New York.
So I lived there a few years, did like 50 national network commercials, so that's where I got beat.
So what was your get to get the commercial? Was it just your love?
I think a lot of it was, and the theater background. The theater background actually, in when you watch a commercial, or when the audience sees a commercial, it's immediate that the audience needs to know. He's the baker, he's the lawyer, she's the so-and-so. And so there is that, you got to look the part.
So you look hard, you managed to play all those different
and it
things.
just so happens.
You took in a commercial, you used to do a lot of commercials too, like you, but I did mine in England. But once you sort of get one, and then you get one, you get a third
you're on
one,
fire.
and all of a sudden everybody wants you, like, ooh, this is cool.
Absolutely. So
do you still get results?
Yeah, well, not in those spots. The Wendy's actually changed over when Dave Thomas died. But I did the last commercial he did, and 2 days before we did that, he passed away, and they still had me do the spot. And it was, I went, oh, everybody's, you know, be there. Oh, because they use the same people all the time, even background people. So I moved back, like I said, the weather was brutal in New York, and so I moved back to LA. Yeah. Fortunately, I had some credits at that time and was able to get an agent, but it was still one of those things where I was getting commercials. I wanted to get out on TV and film and some sitcoms or television series. Just didn't happen. And I felt like I was spinning my wheels.
You got stuck in commercial.
Seemed like it.
And that's a problem, because you can get stuck in radio, you can get stuck in TV, you can get stuck in film. And once you get stuck into that place, it's very hard. Oh, there's the commercial guy, you know. Right. We're not going to put him into the TV, we're not going to put him into film, because he's commercial.
Well, I mean, look at the people, look at Progressive Girl and stuff. I mean, even though she does, she does do other projects, but it's one of those things where you're oversaturating the market. So I ended up moving to Las Vegas, and I opened the show.
Las Vegas. When did
my folks moved here.
Oh.
When I moved here.
You followed your mom down?
No,
you kept his mother and father.
Where are you? The umbilical cord. Cut it! So they had moved to Las Vegas when I went to California in '77. Okay. So I kept visiting for holidays. So I moved here, and I did all the voices for the original show out front of Treasure Island, the pirate show. Actually, there's a little trivia. Steve Wynn did the British cast, and I did all of the rest of the characters in the show, and performed the show for a few months. Yeah, it was interesting. And then got involved with some...
What year was that?
This, I believe they opened in '93.
'93.
And the show ran for like 10 years, and then they switched it to a different show. But I started to get involved with the local community of what's going on in town and what can I do here.
So
is it worth being here?
You became quite a celebrity here. You know, because it doesn't take much to become a celebrity. Believe me, but
I'm a legend in my mind.
Well, good for you.
Somebody, you know.
Yeah, you've got to have something good. So why did you come to Vegas? I guess you got this job was number one, but number two, there's not much film business out.
Yeah.
There was never that much here.
I happen to have already become vested through SAG and after and equity. So I knew that I at least had a pension. Only sibling at the time. I have other brothers and sisters, but I was the only person to be able to be here and take care of them. Yeah. So I did that, and then I went back and did another theater production of Guys and Dolls at the old Desert Inn with Jack Jones, Maureen McGovern, and Frank Gorshin.
My goodness, you.
So we did that for a few months, took it to Atlantic City, came back here, and then I would go back to New York just in the summer.
Okay, quick question. Yeah. Have you ever not worked?
I've never done anything but this. I've had like a real job.
Worked.
Yeah, well...
No, wait a second. It's funny how people think that acting and all this is not a real job. It is a real job.
It is.
Carmo told me one day, he's a good friend of my husband and I, and he said to me, I've got a job just like you job. My husband was in real estate. He had his own real estate. He's a private investor. And I have a job just like you. Just because I'm an actor doesn't mean it's not a job. Right. So it is a job. Absolutely. You've always had a job.
Yeah, and most of the time your job is looking for work. You actually are on set. It doesn't feel like a job.
But you're looking for the next one.
Absolutely. So I would start looking around for some different projects. And for television, like crime stories that I was on, The Watcher, Hearts Are Wild.
What was your favorite?
Geez,
you gotta have a favorite.
Well, I did. I mean, I think the fact that I had a nice little role in Ocean 11. And working with a group of people.
Oh my goodness.
But I worked opposite Bruce Willis in The Favorite. Helen in...
now we're getting it. Now we're going to name it.
I know, now I'm name dropping.
No, I love it.
It's just one of those things when something did come to town, you know, at the time I came here, it's like we're saying, it's not really a film and TV town. So having the credentials from LA.
You were a AAA.
Where did you come from?
You know, on that, I hate to cut this interview short because he's fascinating, this guy. Absolutely, Rusty, you are just...
And I mean that, man. I swear to God, babe. Where's Sammy now?
You know, we're at the Peppermill at Las Vegas, and of course, you know, Rusty is you're a resident of Vegas and everything else. I just want to ask you one more question. What advised the younger generation to sort of go into a career like you two?
Don't do it unless you really... are dedicated to it. Because, I mean, even after I've done what I still know that there's want to do. I just recently got asked in a production of Kiss Me at the Nevada Conservatory Theater held at the Chili. And so going back to we start rehearsing in March. And it opens at the end of April. It seems
like Rusty is forever working, always got jobs, but you're so talented. The reason that he gets so much work is dedicated to what you do. On that, Rusty, thank you for coming on this.
Absolutely.
We'll be back.
Thanks.